The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Welcome to Moments of Strength. I'm your host, Mary Kaufman. In this show, we celebrate the incredible resilience of mothers showing up through life's challenges, growing through every triumph, and carving out space for their passions and identity. We're here to uplift and reassure every mom that you are not alone and asking for help is a powerful strength. Each episode brings a story of motherhood's beautiful chaos. I'm happy you could join us for today's inspiring journey. And today's guest is Molly. So Molly, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. And so Molly and I actually met at a women's conference, an empowerment conference a few months ago. And we just had a connection there. And so I thought it would be great to have you come and tell your story. Thank you for coming. Yes. So on this show, really the aim of the show is to try to uplift moms just wherever they are in their journey through stories of life experiences. And so to have moms come on here and talk about their paths to and through motherhood, I think is so helpful.
Yeah.
And so, so I appreciate you coming on. The layout of the show really is to talk a little bit about your background, just to give viewers a foundation of where you're coming from, and then make those connections to things that happen later in life. And then we'll just go on that journey. And before we wrap up, there'll be an opportunity if you have anything, we didn't touch on that you would want to share. Okay?
Perfect.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, so the current Molly, the current woman that I am today, is a entrepreneur. I'm a speaker. I'm a coach. I work with parents and leaders to help them determine who they are intrinsically, their mind and their soul. I call that uniqueness, and help them get in control of their mental wellness through some pretty cool certifications that I have. It's all through Flowsys and very awesome. And then I help them really achieve the optimal mental state through discovering their process for flow.
Nice.
So that's what I get to do now.
Yeah, exciting.
In addition to that, the other hats that I wear, I am a mom to 4 littles that are not so little. I have a 3-year-old, a 11-year-old, 13, and a 15-year-old. So we have all of the
in
ages.
The throes of it, yes.
Yeah, and I also have the honor of being married to an amazing man and a part of an incredible community. So I've got some good things going on.
So where did all of this start? And you don't have to give locations.
I know. My journey is pretty complex and a lot of layers to it. So I was born and raised on, I think, what you would call a homestead situation now. Growing up, we called it a hobby farm. So we grew up in the middle of the country, and I was actually homeschooled from kindergarten, 3rd grade through high school.
Oh, wow.
And I was along with my 4 brothers. So I grew up out in the country and learning and growing up in a really cool environment. Not a lot of people have building a garden and taking care of chickens and cows and pigs as a part of their school education. So it was kind of cool to be able to have that looking back. My parents did a great job providing unique opportunities for us to learn from. And then my first job was actually around 13 at a dairy farm across the road. So from a very young age, work ethic was instilled into us. So we work hard and be the best you can be and just, give everything your all. And as I grew up and I went through life, I moved out of the house at 18, did some time in northern England at a university there, and had the opportunity to go to an international school with, I think at the time it was 100 80 students with 30 countries represented.
Wow.
So a lot of really cool opportunities to be exposed to different countries and different cultures and languages. After that, moved back home for a little bit, and that's where I met, he's now my ex-husband, but my husband at the time. After a quick romance, it was about 1.5 years we got married, and about 4 years later I had my first little buddy. Raiko is his name. He's the 15-year-old now, but we had him 2 years later. We had his brother, Kai, and we raised them for, I think we were married about 9.5 years before we got divorced. And then I really, towards the end of that, really started figuring out kind of my career path.
Sure.
In the middle of that. I'd always thought that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and wife,
Right.
but found out early on that I was actually really good at corporate, and I really liked it. And so I did a lot of the juggling corporate life with being a mom to some littles, and also a wife and member of my community at that time. And after my divorce, I really kind of struggled with imposter syndrome and really struggled with a lot of shame and guilt around my divorce. And so I tried to make it up in other ways.
Sure.
And I had also developed PTSD and different mental wellness challenges throughout different experiences in that period of time as well. And so on the outside, it all looked pretty. I had the biggest house on the street. I was an executive at this global software company, 2 beautiful brown-eyed boys, and I ran so much. It was very much a part of my identity. It was how I actually managed my mental health right after having my second son. But then it quickly became my identity. I think there was a season of time, there was a season of time, it was probably around 6 months that I was running a half marathon every single weekend. Like it was my identity.
That is,
yeah.
Wow, that's
intense.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just interject
Yeah,
here?
please.
Okay. Did you run when you were younger? Was
No.
this something you returned to, or just something you started as
In
a?
high school, I dabbled with it.
Okay.
But we lived out in the country, and
Sure.
I'd never really found my process for running because I got to get really bored and just not want to do it.
Yeah.
But it actually became the thing that I looked to help me from my mental health during, I had pretty intense postpartum depression after having my son, and was trying to figure out how to manage my mental health naturally, and chose running as the outlet. And in hindsight, it works, but it's not a solution. It doesn't dissolve those issues, but it does help you kind of patch it little by little as you go.
Sure, and channel it, and then at the same time, physically you're fit, so you are getting a result that it's a desired result on some level, and so understandable. And I think moms everywhere pick something because it has to go somewhere, and so running is sort of an approved way to channel that if you're not working through it, because you are sort of keeping yourself healthy in a way. But just like everything in extreme or in excess, it also it can work against you.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's what happened for me, because there came a point where I was actually running I was training for one of my marathons. It was a 20-mile run. I was on a trail near my house I was going to run 10 miles out and 10 miles back for that training day. And around mile 7, I didn't know it at the time, but basically my nervous system had started shutting down, and I passed out on the path. And this is a wooded area, very secluded. So as a single woman out on this trail by myself, 7 miles from civilization, and my only means of getting back is by my own physical ability. It was extremely scary for me.
For sure.
So picking myself up, pulling gravel out of my knees and hands, and got myself back to safety. Thank God. I'm not sure that it was all due to my own strength or ability. I do thank God helped me in that situation. I slowly had to start coming to the realization that running was actually no longer good for me, because I was experiencing so much stress at that time with this beautiful mask I had put on, with everything looks great externally. It was a lot of stress, and going through a divorce and being a single mom and navigating a corporate career and putting on this facade all the time, I found that I was just it was wrecking my body. And so when I found out later, after understanding more of the science behind it, that basically my stress was already here. And when I'd exercise, yes, exercise is a stress reliever, but there comes a point where your stress, it has a limit. Your body has a limit. And I was going beyond that limit, and it was just starting to shut down. So I had to come to terms that running was no longer meant for me. And that was a huge identity crisis for me.
For sure.
So not only was I dealing with all these mental health issues, this imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, you know, always battling with myself internally, all these mental health issues, depression, anxiety, triggers, burnout, you know, not communicating in healthy ways with most everyone in my life. I now lost the thing that I thought was who I was. So I had to start identifying, like unlumping who I am from what I have, house, kids, from what I do. I'm an executive, I'm a runner. So I had this huge crisis where I had to start figuring out who I am, because what I have and what I do is not who I am.
And all the time, I mean, a half marathon is, you don't do that in 20 minutes. So, I mean, there's a lot of time there where it can feel frantic and disconnected, because what are you doing with that time now, you know? So, yeah. So how did you do that?
How did
you work through that? I mean, you don't have to talk about all the things, but
happy to share. So because my career was going so well at this time, I was starting to take over a different division in the organization. I was looking for different solutions and ways of implementing our programs and strategies. And I stumbled across this program called FlowSys. FlowSys is this, in a nutshell, it's reprograms the way that you think. And by kind of doing that reboot, you are able to have a grid for how to communicate in a healthy way. You're able to determine your uniqueness, who you are, your mind and soul, your intrinsic motivations, actually put words to it, and how that's so different from personality tests. Personality tests are just measuring that external behavior. Myers-Briggs, Insights Discovery, that's looking at your external behavior relative to a context. But uniqueness is really getting down to that internal cause within you. So I was able to start doing that, and then as I'm building out this grid, I'm starting to reprogram my mental thought process, and that allowed me to start actually addressing and dealing with the root cause of my depression. I have all these different contradictions. I'm holding people to one standard, and I'm not holding myself to that same standard. It's okay for me to yell at my kids, but if anyone yells at me, that's abuse. And so I had a lot of justifications and rationalizations for the way that I treated other people, or even my children. And that's something oh, bless their hearts, I talk to moms every day in my job, and that's one of the biggest things for us with our mental health, is that we have all these ways we justify our own behavior, and it's not, you know, we don't want to be treated that way. So that was a big thing. So starting to deal with the root cause and dissolving these issues was such a big deal, because I wasn't fit. I wasn't doing a good job mentally and emotionally for my kids. I wasn't setting them up for success. You know, there was a point where they were the playground bullies, you know, and they were little, you know, they were elementary school, but they were modeling out behavior that they witnessed, you know. I mean, bullies, I have a lot of empathy for bullies, because bullying is a taught behavior, and my children learned that from me. And so I had to come to terms with that. So there was a lot of self-awareness on this journey, and really reflecting. But what I thought was really beautiful, and something I actually love, and I'm so honored to be able to help other people with now, is realizing that self-awareness on its own is not enough. It's this combination of awareness and application. What do I do about it? Okay, great, I have triggers, I have depression. What can I do about it? Now what? And I feel like a lot of traditional methodologies are coping mechanisms. You know, go for a walk, take a shower. None of that's bad or wrong, but it's not dissolving the issues, just coping with it. So I was able to actually start dissolving these issues. So at work, I had 3 promotions in 1 year. I'm growing a ton over there professionally, but it was when I started taking it home that I really saw the big change, both in myself, but really with my kids. I had the opportunity to really start to see the impact of my change in their lives. And they started becoming, I mean, the turning point for me was when my boys had gone from being the playground bullies to the classroom leaders. And that's when I knew, okay, if I, of all people, this mess of a person, can experience transformation, I have to figure out how to become certified in this to then go out and help other people.
For sure.
Because moms need this. Moms, I think I fell into this mindset for so long that, well, I was a victim to this experience, or I was a victim to this. And I don't want to negate anyone's experience of being a victim, but for my journey, I was so empowered by this healing process that I loved knowing I didn't have to be a victim to my past. I could actually embrace it and own it and heal from it. And then now I can use it to help others heal on their own journey. And it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a destination.
At
So
all.
we're just always growing and hoping to become better versions of ourselves.
For sure. You know, such a good point about your kids. And I applaud you for talking about that, because I think, you know, as moms, we want to present our children to the world as though, you know, the best.
I did.
Yeah. And you're right. We do justify a lot of our behavior. Even we take what they're doing and say, well, of course I would because you did.
Yeah.
But that's actually not the best way, because your kids are a reflection of you. I mean, they just got here. And so to your point about them learning from you, and then going out and modeling those behaviors, so often as parents, well, one, I think a lot of parents don't understand that.
Yeah.
So what you said there is so important, that genetics are a thing and unlocking genes are a thing, but behavior oftentimes outside of your home by your kids is an expression of what they've witnessed in their house. And you, as their parents, are the most important people in their lives. And so, and likely the people who spend the most time with them. You know, that's arguable in some homes, but you're who they want to be like, you're who they love the most, and they will go out and behave like that because their brains aren't developed enough to discern that that is not a way that you should behave as a parent. So there's a lot we could do with that, you know, just like in life, but but just an important message that if you're sitting at home wondering why your child acts like that, I think the first place, and you know, I do life coaching too, and it's so interesting to hear about what you do with your clients, because I really work with people to take where they are now and start behaving now in a different way. So it really could work in tandem with what you have going on. But
it sounds like it.
The first thing is to own everything. So if you're asking yourself, like, why do they always do that? What you might want to ask yourself is, what part have I played in them always doing that? What can I adjust in my own behavior to demonstrate to them that that's not what we do? We're on the same team. I should start behaving like we're on the same team and not like, you know, my 2-year-old is working against me. Like, they're not really equipped to do that. So anyway, I'm glad you talked about that and brought that up, because that's such an important part of just what everybody's dealing with. And even if your kid isn't the playground bully, you could be very good friends with that playground bully's mom because she's a lovely person struggling through something. So I think all the time we just want to blame and remove, or not be a part of. But fundamentally, you can't escape it, because that's society, and all of that is going to affect you in some way anyway. So the better move is to assist, support, reach out, help, you know, and all those things. So.
Well, and taking that time to reflect too, and I think guilt in and of itself can act as a marker for us. Like, am I wrong? Is it my body signaling that I've done something wrong? And then address it, own your mistakes. And that's been a big part of our journey. Like, I just got back from a trip to Scotland where I was speaking, and I brought my 15-year-old son with me. It was such an amazing experience. And he's such an incredible person. because he's chosen to, and we've also done a lot of repair, right? Like who he is an amazing person, but we've done a ton of repair because the person I was is not the person I am. And there was a whole journey in there that got us to the person I am today. But there was this moment where we were sitting down at dinner with a family, and I started sharing part of my story. They asked me a couple questions about my past, and I started sharing part of my story, and I stopped and I looked at him and I was like, you've never heard this before.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not for his benefit to know some of my story yet. You know, it's something I am fine sharing someday, but I haven't yet. And he goes, Mom, this is your story. People connect with you through your stories. Share your story. And we call that a man moment. Like he did the right thing, even if it wasn't necessarily comfortable or easy. And it was really cool because I think it was a demonstration of the repair that him and I have experienced. Because I think that's the thing that I felt for so long, with this guilt and this shame around the decisions I made when my kids were younger, that I have to live with that, that I have to always be kind of plagued by that. And it was really empowering for me and really healing to know that with my journey and with the right tools, I can heal and I can repair those relationships if I'm willing and they're willing. And we've been able to do that. And I think that's an example of it. Him and I had a really rough time when he was very young. And now we have I think, a very beautiful relationship. I think he would agree. And so I think that's the big takeaway from my story, is that it was a mess, but with the right tools and resources, which I think is part of the message that you share, I was able to heal and grow and then step into repair to then start letting go of that guilt and let go of that shame as I continue going forward.
And even in that, you know, I think kids know more than we think.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes they've developed further than we allow ourselves to. I'm fully guilty of this because, you know, it's a lot of girls and then a boy. And so my youngest, as a boy, it's like, I never wanted him to get older. Like his 3-year-old self, he's 11. When I see him, he's 3. And so he has to be like,
little buddy.
Mom, yeah.
I'm
always
not
like,
a little buddy.
Doing? You know? And so it's really not healthy. But anyway, so they, you know, he's 15 and, you know, he's sitting next to you and giving you permission. And then you do that. That's really reinforcing the trust and the bond you have and the new place you are. And that's really kind of beautiful to be able to do that.
I think so too. And what you were saying earlier about our little kids and how they get a little crazy and stuff like that, like children in and of themselves, and you know this from your degrees and everything, is that they don't have the ability to maintain mental resilience on their own.
No.
It's like we say this casual, like, oh, kids are resilient. Well, maybe physically, or they just move forward.
Right.
But that's not resilience. Resilience is your ability to hold your thought process even when the circumstances or people try to take you down. Children aren't mentally resilient. So what that means is they're syncing up with us. And if we're not resilient, then we're all operating at this lower mental level, if you will. And so that's a part of the chaos in homes a lot of times, because we aren't getting better. So I'll have parents come to me and ask, oh, I need help with my son, I need help with my daughter. And it's like, okay, I'd love to help you. And they're like, no, my kid's the one that needs it.
No.
I'm like, yeah, they're on their own journey, but their journey is actually begins with you and your journey, because they're going to sync up to you and they're going to follow that path.
Yeah. I want you to fix them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
I can give you tools and techniques, but it's going to begin with your mental health and with your ability to hold your thought process and be resilient.
Okay, so I love your journey. Can I ask some questions about okay, so when you were first a mom, so you had a lot going on and you were also doing the corporate thing. How was that? And I know we kind of know how things turned out, but in those moments, because there are a lot of people right now who are new moms or have really little kids and they're doing both work-life, trying to make that balance. Like, what was that experience like for you?
I would say it wasn't great. I'm doing it differently now with my 3-year-old. The thing that I've learned, well, let me answer your question first. I think at that time, it was pretty chaotic because, again, I wasn't mentally stable. I wasn't resilient. And so my kids were syncing up to me. And so there was a lot of tension, a lot of frustration. It wasn't a great experience for anyone. I would say the thing that I've learned now that allows me to really experience a lot of happiness and joy and like really be present is, it's the term I use is called flipping the switch, where it's you're fully present in the moment. Women tend to be able to have up to 5 thoughts at one time in a healthy way. So we think we should have 5 thoughts. We should be making dinner. We should be thinking about, the grocery list. We should be thinking about all these different things. But the reality is that we're not most productive and we're not going to be able to flow, and we get overwhelmed the minute we introduce a 6th thought. And
that's interesting. People should listen to this.
It's crazy. But that's like the tears and the frustration and the emotion. You're overwhelmed. Red flag.
Because you'll be doing all of that, and then someone walks in the room. It's too much.
Too much.
Yeah.
Or the phone rings, or you get another text, or
and
it can be
it's
the
like, I can't do it, even though you were maintaining those 5.
So I think it's the big thing for me is just because I can't have 5 thoughts doesn't mean I need to have 5 thoughts. And so how can I kind of operate around that 2 to 3 and be fully present in the role that I'm in? So what I mean by that is, well, we're having a conversation right now. It means I'm not interacting with my kids.
Right.
Because that's mom mode. This is not mom mode. So when I leave our conversation, I will switch back into mom mode.
Yes.
But that is flipping that switch from this mode to that mode. And so it's like the ability to fully switch and fully be present in the moment not only helps us maintain our energy, but allows us to kind of prevent and circumvent that overwhelmed feeling that we experience. So
you
helpful.
can do that now.
Yes, absolutely. And something I coach women on all the time, because I think we need tools to know how to manage our mental health, how to be able to stay in control of our mental health, because the smallest things can throw us off. Maybe it's a mental or emotional trigger from something we've experienced in our past. Maybe it's not feeling heard, or we've got all these emotions or feelings that we're not getting out because we don't have a community or a partner that is creating safe places for us to share and to process out those feelings. But that's the big thing is I have a really strong community. So I have 3 people that I talk to weekly where we give each other permission to ask the tough questions, to really dig into each other's lives. And we've also agreed to be fully accountable and fully open with the other person as well. And so it's like having that. I also have a mentor. I have an executive coach. I have all of these people in my life on top of an incredibly supportive, healthy, wonderful husband, which is huge as well, because he creates space where I can get out everything I'm thinking and feeling before bed, and then I can sleep. And there's all these different things that work together.
And it took the experiences you had for you to realize what you want and then go out and find those things. And I don't mean, pick them up at the store. I mean, like, do the work, figure out that having 3 people to talk to is what works for you. And you're right. I think, just in doing this show too and talking to many moms, they can find friends, and that's great. And we should have community. We talk about that all the time here. We want to help. We don't want to ask for help. If you came to me for help, I would fully help you. I would not ask you for help. That's the gap that I think moms have, because there's this expectation that like you have it together, or some weird thing we think we arrive as a mom and we're supposed to know what to do. And the mom we think we're showing that to also does not know. And so that gap of just asking for help, even though you're willing to provide it. But it's, convenient sometimes to make friends with people on the teams, the parents of your kids' teams, and just that kind of community, but really intentional community, finding those people, knowing what you want in a person that is willing to listen to you, and being brave enough to keep your eyes open to that, or reserve time for yourself in situations to say, you know, that person looks like somebody I could, or sounds like somebody I could connect with, and then being brave enough to try to make those connections.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time to figure that out because you don't always know who you are as a person, your uniqueness, and what really resonates with that. And then you find yourself in all of these situations because your kids want things, sports, you pick a school for them or whatever. So some of that is convenience, but to be intentionally seeking those things out, those supports, and it took you some time to find that.
Took me some time to find that.
But it's okay because we're on a journey, like you said. And so now 15, 13, 3, and what was the middle one?
11. She's my bonus daughter.
Okay.
So my husband and I were both previously married. So the two oldest boys are from my first marriage. My bonus daughter is from my husband's first marriage. And then we have our little buddy at the end. We're like, oh, they're all totally like self-reliant and independent. We should start over.
Yeah.
So
of course.
We did. We did it with a lot of thought and wise counsel. It was really intentional, but it was, it's been its own journey of going back to total reliance, having someone totally dependent on you.
Well, and now you get to try the things you've learned.
And it's been really beautiful. There was this moment where he was, I think, around 18 months. And we had a friend come over and he was playing with like different Duplos and blocks and stuff. And Zadok is his name. He ran over and he crashed the tower over. And our friend went, wah! It like got really loud and big, just joking and stuff. But Zadok looked at him and he started crying.
Oh, too big of a reaction.
It was this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, I don't think he's ever been around yelling. And it was this full circle moment for me of like, oh, thank God we're able to give that to him. And obviously we want to help develop him and prepare him for the real world. We know that that's not always going to be the case for him, but to be able to give him this mentally and emotional safe place to grow and to develop has been so beautiful. And the older kids need that too as they're developing. So to be able to provide that now for them as well is just such a joy and such a gift. But there was this full circle moment of like, oh,
you're crying, everyone's crying, but for different reasons.
Oh my God, exactly. Yes.
And then for your kids that are older too, you know, the lessons there and in being able to understand that things can be repaired. You know, if you show up and you're humble and vulnerable, it's like things can be repaired. And the expectation that people should never make a mistake or people should be who you always think they were. That's kind of a rough expectation because we're all growing. So even in marriages or long-term relationships or short-term relationships or your kids and you, you know, a lot of that, well, you've changed or you're different now or you never used to or some of that should be maybe discussed with some grace and some acceptance and then openness because you're never the same mom. You know, you were a mom of one, you're not the same person when you're a mom of two. And actually, if you're a mom of one, you're not the same mom the next day that you were the day before because you've learned and grown whether you liked it or not, you know. And so to realize that about yourself, well, I used to always do this and I don't do that anymore. And that's because you grew and learned. Or maybe you gave up. Maybe you just didn't want to do that anymore. But a lot of times it's just, we're here to be on this journey. I mean, life is an adventure. That's what you're here for. And really to engage in that. And now your kids have seen that even if you're going down a road, it's okay to change paths. And it's okay to be the one that admits that maybe they acted in a way that they shouldn't. And coming out of that can still be a great relationship.
Well, what do you think of someone who admits when they're wrong? What do you think of that person?
No, I love that person.
Do you think less of them? Like
never.
Oh, exactly.
Never.
So why do we put that on ourselves? That people are going to think less of us when we admit when we're wrong. We say in our house, we actually don't say I'm sorry. Sometimes we say it because the other person needs or wants to hear it, but we say I was wrong or I am wrong. That's what we say because that's how you repair. That's part of the process of repair. What did I do wrong? Why did I do it? I don't want to do it again. What can I do to make up for the value or karma that I've taken from you? And so it's like that's a part of that repair process. And that's what we do in our family. And we as parents have to model that. My kids aren't going to think less of me. If anything, if I don't do that, am I teaching them that, one, perfection is like, I think it's attainable or it's a reality, and that means that someday they can or should be expected to attain that? Like, we're setting them up for failure.
All the time.
And we're hurting their future and hurting their journey. And so if we can own the fact that I'm not perfect, but I'm chasing growth and I'm chasing progress, that's my goal, is growth. And then we can model out what it looks like to make mistakes. Then now they have a grid to follow when they make mistakes. I remember there was a time early in my healing journey that I triggered with my son. And I remember talking to my mentor about how ashamed I was and how bad I felt about it. And she goes, well, does he ever trigger? I was like, oh yeah, we're working on his triggers right now. She goes, okay, how do you want him to handle his triggers? Well, I want him to admit that he was wrong for doing it, to acknowledge the pain that he caused other people, to own it, and to try to figure out a plan to repair. And she's like, awesome.
Were you doing that?
She's like, are you going to do that? I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And that was when she kind of delivered this life-changing nugget for me of like, this is, like, are you trying to show your kids that perfection is attainable by your own journey? And it's like, you're not perfect and you're never going to be perfect. So when are we going to let go that control or perfection is going to make me happy as a mom, as a woman, as an individual? I will never be happy if I can control everything. I think I will.
Yeah.
I will never be happy if I have everything in my life perfect. I think I will.
Right.
And so it's like letting go of those lies and embracing my journey of growth, and then being able to model that out for our kids that will help them breathe and know that they don't have to try to chase perfection for themselves.
That's so interesting. You know, I like to be right. But I used to like it a lot more than I like it now. I mean, of course, you like to be right about something or knowledgeable, but that what comes with that is defending your position.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're a person like that, you can get caught up in defending your position and feel pretty good.
Yeah.
But eventually that just makes other people feel bad.
Yeah.
And no one cares if you're right.
Oh, yeah.
Because maybe we're right. But like how they feel at the end of you explaining why you were right and why they were wrong. And I still sometimes with kids too, it's like, I explained this, you experienced it, explained it, you experienced it again. It's like, now there comes a point where I just have to say, like, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, you're just going to have to figure out how that ends for yourself.
Yeah.
Make the decisions around what you're going to do about that. Because obviously, you know, that's not working, even if I was right. So anyway, that whole defend your position, what that teaches your kids, especially if you have a spouse where that person also likes to be right. What your kids learn is everything's a crisis if they're wrong. It's a crisis. It's if they're wrong, then everything's just done with that. You know what I mean? It's not like how you're talking about it, where it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, not a big deal.
And your family knows it's okay to be wrong because they operate like that too.
Yeah.
And so that has to be a growth and a healing that you demonstrate in your home for your kids. So in my house, probably, what is it, 2025? So maybe shortly after COVID, I adopted this ownership philosophy.
Oh.
Just where you own. So if it's not your fault, make it your fault. I had to do that first for myself before I could implement that, you know, or try to teach my kids. I'm still trying to teach them because the default is, like we talked about, to identify who did what and put the blame on them. So the ownership piece is, even if it's not your fault, you should, and fault is, maybe you could interchange that word, but if you just decide to own the situation you're in, then you have the ability to change something. So if you feel like someone is doing something to you, you could ask yourself, well, what am I doing? Okay, I'm still standing here, and maybe it's on me that I'm still standing here while that person is treating me like this. So because I'm choosing to stand here, I also could choose to not be here. And so I'll take ownership of this interaction and being a part of it, and I'll just not be a part of it anymore, and that ends it. Now, if I just go, they treat me like that, and they're always yelling at me, and like all I'm doing is standing there, and they keep treating me like that. It's like, well, they shouldn't be, maybe, but part of that interaction is your choice to remain in it. So you could do that with every situation in your life, and eventually, if you do that, you figure out that you have a choice in everything. You don't always like the consequences of all the choices, and that's when you fall into I can't. You say I can't because you don't like that choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so so if you take ownership, so this is part of when I was talking about life coaching, like what I talk about is how do you own the things in your life so that you can begin to live more intentionally instead of reacting to everything. And that chaos, like when you talked about, it was messy, when you were trying to do both. And that for different reasons, maybe moms find themselves like that. And you are reacting. Oh, yeah. Because you haven't been there before. It's hard to be intentional as a new mom because you don't know what you're getting into. And so you feel a step behind and you're always reacting, the baby's crying, all this stuff is going on. And so you're just putting out fires and it feels chaotic and like you don't have any control. And you don't have to be perfect, but you can step back and assess for a minute, what am I doing here that is making this more chaotic than maybe it would be, except that it is going to be. But what am I doing? It's not the baby. The baby isn't doing this to me, How can I own that? So anyway, it's fun to hear you talk about what you do with work and then think about how that can be communicated in many ways with people. But I love how you help them sort of dig in and find what's unique about them. So
I really like what you're saying, by the way. Like, this is really cool to hear you say this, because I think it has one of the core principles that I teach is contrastive thinking. And it's like, how can I find where I'm wrong? Like, I don't have to admit I'm wrong. I don't have to say I'm wrong. Sure. But how could I be wrong? What is a way that I could be? And I have a friend who said it the other day, turning problems into opportunities, where it's like, so this is the issue. What are the opportunities? What are my options? And I think taking ownership of that. Humility, I think, is a big part of that too, where it's like, okay, can I consider another perspective? Can I consider anyone else's perspective and not have to be the only perspective?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a big growth moment if you can do that. And the other thing is, kids can't do that. So when they're very young, they can't take I shouldn't say that because of course there will be some exception, but in general, kids don't take the perspective of someone else. Now, sometimes you have kids who are and they're very sweet, and there's probably one in most classrooms who just is empathetic. They feel what everybody's,
compassion in the uniqueness world. That's what that is.
Yes. and you see that in those kids, and they are like that until something messes that up in the world. Hopefully not. But, they are just like that. It's a light in this pool of kids. So, but, when your kids come home and they're in like, whatever, they're 5, and they come home and you say like, how was school? Or what'd you do? And they're just like, they don't tell you a full story because they don't understand that you don't know.
Yeah.
Like they're not taking the time. They don't have the brain development to step outside of themselves and try to see what you saw. And so as a mom, I did not, even though I had a degree in psychology, I missed that day. I don't know. But, or I didn't have kids, so I didn't apply it. Sure. But I didn't understand that. So my third daughter is very strong-willed. And I used to say to her, what do you think your sister feels like when you listen? She was like, I'm not Not only am I not thinking about it in those moments, but I'm not thinking about it while you're asking me. She had her own agenda. So,
Probably your uniqueness thing for her too.
Oh yeah, I'd love to talk to my kids.
I love it.
So anyway, understanding that as a parent too, and that's how you can practice getting into the perspective of other people, is do it with what your kids are experiencing.
Sure.
Because you're the grown-up and they're the kids who can't do it. So when they come home from school, you can say, what did Bobby say to you at lunch today? So you set the scene, you give them something very specific, and then you get an answer. But now you've put yourself in their chair at the lunch table with Bobby sitting across from them, and that's how you can practice learning those perspectives. And if you can do that, you can practice it with your spouse, your siblings, and then you can practice it with the people you work with. And surprisingly, there are so many people that do not do that. They do not consider the person across from them how they feel or what they're thinking.
Absolutely. It's a backward step. It takes work and effort
for sure
to do that. And it's not, one of the big things that we talk about in our house is what you're doing or what you're saying for the other person's benefit. And that's kind of a grid that we use around, well, he yelled at me.
Right.
Did you like it? Do you want him to yell at you? No. Okay, then is it okay for you to yell at him? Right? And so it's like kind of, even if someone does something to you, still being that regulator, you regulate your own reactions and your own response. Just because someone does it to you, is that still how you want to be treated? No, then we shouldn't be doing that. You're setting yourself up for mental illness. And so I like the, is it for someone's benefit?
Yeah. And that emotional control too. So what I always, the underlying theme of things I do is mental toughness, and that emotional control is a piece of that. And it doesn't mean don't feel, of course not. But it means don't allow your emotions to control what you're doing now. So if your brother yells at you, now you're yelling to your mom about your brother. But is that how you want to be acting? You're having an emotional moment. Now, you could say, because he shouldn't be yelling, and maybe you're not a yeller, you can take a second and then think, I don't want to yell, but I can say this to you because I need I'm still a kid, I need somebody, and just say, he's yelling at me, I don't appreciate that, I'm not going to react to that or whatever. I mean, that's pretty mature, but that emotional control, and as adults, very difficult not to be driven by emotion. I mean, we are.
Yep.
We are.
We're humans.
So we are humans.
Our brain is literally half fact, half emotion.
Yes.
So, absolutely.
So being able to recognize that you're having an emotion and then what to do about it. Doesn't mean don't experience it, but maybe you're on the way to completing something and, marathons. I mean, you have all kinds of emotions during those things. I quit is one.
Sprints everything.
But then you don't, and that's controlling that. So getting to that point where you don't let emotion drive everything that you're doing. You really stay on the rails more, I think, too.
And there's different uniquenesses that are more emotive than others as well. Just like some are more future focused. So asking someone who's more future focused, oh, what did you do this past weekend?
This is me so much.
Physically have to go back and take a minute or two to think about that. But if you could be like, oh, what do you have going on this coming weekend? Like, oh, well, we've got this barbecue and we've got this game. And so it's like, that's the same thing. And so there's all these uniqueness factors. So it's like some are more fact-driven, some are more why-driven, some are more other people emotions-driven, some are more their emotions-driven, some are goal-driven. So it's like each one of the uniquenesses has an effect they're trying to have on the world and on those around them. And that comes out in every single thing they do. Well, as moms, guess what? We have a uniqueness and an effect we're trying to have on others. And that can get in our way a lot of times if we don't know that, to understand, I am so mad right now because every time I explain the reason why, someone negates me. Someone calls me a know-it-all. Someone calls me a bragger or a show-off. That can cause someone who is a teacher uniqueness to actually trigger because they're speaking against their uniqueness.
Right.
And so it's like knowing your uniqueness and being able to understand it and live from that space gives you a lot of freedom and understanding around why you might be experiencing different positive, like lots of energy, energy, I got to be in my uniqueness.
Yeah.
Or really low lows or triggers or things like that is because of someone's negating your uniqueness or speaking against it. So it allows you to really be able to navigate some of these things as well. And then taking the time to understand your kids or your partner as well. Our whole family, we all know our own uniqueness and we know
That's
each
awesome.
other's, so that we can, oh, this person's really upset. Why? Oh, he's got really big feelings and I didn't take time to let him share. What are you feeling, buddy? Like, get it all out. Safe place, get it all out. You can visibly see his shoulders go down.
Yeah.
When you feel what he feels, you mirror his emotion. He settles down instantly, and now it's time to go to get a snack. He feels great. The other one is motivated by teaching, by explaining the why. If I were to just like, okay, that makes like, okay, great, like moving on, we've got things to do.
They still got to get it out.
Exactly. Oops, I touched the microphone. He would feel like unsettled by that and actually kind of double down and keep explaining, or feel really frustrated and shut down. And it's like, oh, why is he being so disgruntled and he's so moody? And it's like, do I know his uniqueness? Am I seeing him in his uniqueness? Because at the end of the day, we all want to be seen. I want to be seen. I'm sure you want to be seen. Like, we all want to be seen and known and understood. Our kids crave the same. And by knowing, starting with our uniqueness, we can then help do the same for them as well and truly see who they are intrinsically, that deepest part of them.
Yeah. That was so wise.
It's so fun. It's so cool.
Yeah, it is so cool. And then to be able to just sit down with new people all the time in your work. That is so fascinating. I very much like that.
I do too.
Okay, so we should talk a little bit about, do you want to talk a little bit about your business? I mean, I know we've touched on like different parts of it and how you use it in your family, but you know, for the benefit of those that are watching who may want to contact you or understand just your business, maybe you could talk a little about that.
Yeah, so I'm a keynote speaker, so I speak on various stages. I also facilitate different interactive workshops as well. I just wrapped up one with the Boys and Girls Club and the Women's Fund, where we put together a 4-part series on parenting. It was all on mental resilience for parents, where we learned their uniqueness. We learned the healthiest way to communicate and how to repair when we make a mistake, because we're humans and we're going to. Identifying our triggers and the source of our depression, to actually start dissolving those with neuroscience and psychology-backed tools, and then anxiety and overwhelm, basically. So how do we, burnout was the other one. So helping people with that journey. So I do keynote and then workshops and then executive coaching. So I work a lot with individuals who are looking to grow and become better versions of themselves. I kind of have a disclosure when I meet with people at first, where it's like, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to ask hard questions. Are you going to be okay with that? Because growth is uncomfortable. Growth, you can choose. Do you want growth or do you want comfort? Because if you choose growth, it's going to be uncomfortable. So are you okay with that? So they have to opt in and agree to that when we start, because I have a 20-week, I call it my flow leadership coaching program, where we work through and we do a full, kind of like I said, rewiring of how we approach problems, how we handle relationships. And it's truly this journey of self-discovery, but beyond just awareness, again, to that application. How do I interact? How do I repair? How do I know who I am intrinsically to lead from that place for the most energy? Because we're humans. We do everything based off of energy. Why didn't I clean the garage last weekend? I didn't feel like it. That's energy. So we're humans, we're also made to have energy. So I help people kind of unlock that limitless energy within them as they're overcoming these mental hurdles. And then we discover their unique process for flow, which is so fun. I'm only one of a handful of people certified in the world to be able to do that. And I absolutely love it. It's so cool. So those are the 3 main ways that I work with people.
Do you feel like when people hire you as a coach, do you feel like, just coach to coach question, do you feel like they're in to do the work? Do they do the work? Do they hire you because they want you to do the work? Or, you know what I mean? Like, what, just candidly, your experience with that? And I'm not saying it as we own everything, and of course, growing in our business is understanding who's coming to us and what their needs are, and sometimes we have to adjust to help them out, and then that helps us grow and learn what the needs are. But what is your experience with that, just out of curiosity?
Well, I'm a different coach today than I was when I began. I think I enabled some of my clients early on. Best of intentions, doesn't mean it's actually for their benefit. I think I thought if they were paying me and they were showing up week after week, that meant they wanted to grow.
Yes.
And I think we both know that is not a sign of wanting to grow.
It's like getting a gym membership.
Yes, that's a great way of thinking about it. So I have actually had to turn away people who wanted to work with me. I have actually had to pause clients and basically say, hey, we've kind of had to work through the same topic 5-6 times. I am not seeing there's evidence that you actually are looking to grow, and I would love to be a part of your journey when the time is right for you. Because maybe this isn't the season where you're looking to grow. Maybe you're going through a difficult divorce. Maybe you're going through a job transition. Maybe whatever, and you're just not focusing on these areas right now. And it's your journey. I'm not going to tell you what's wrong or bad. But I also don't want to enable you and use up your account, all of your money, or I don't want to give you a false assurance that you're growing because you're meeting with me. That doesn't actually equal growth. So I've had kind of the full gamut. I think when people sign up, they can say they want to grow, but it's proven in our actions, and we have to keep an eye on that for their benefit. I think to be able to truly, ethically, and morally be able to provide the value that have offered them. If we're not able to do that, then I think we owe that to them to be able to have those candid conversations and candid discussions. I do things a lot unconsciously because our behavior lives in our unconscious brain. So just to have a direct conversation most of the time doesn't actually reach someone's behavior. So I do a lot through questions, and
so they can come to the conclusion.
So they can reflect. And there's times where we decide that it's good to take a break, good to take a pause, and then we'll reconvene when you're in a space that you are ready to kind of pick this back up and start working on your own journey again.
Well, and as a coach too, we want to be involved with somebody's growth.
Oh yeah.
So it's like,
it's a part of me. I want to do it so bad.
I know. So I was just curious what your experience with that has been.
Well, and I've had people who've hired me, because I have my coaching program, but I also have like executive coaching. Someone can just hire me weekly for executive coaching, and we work through problems week by week that you have. And I've had that before, but it comes a time where it's like, you're not using me as a negative way, but you're using this time to just process out all your thoughts and feelings, which if that's what you need, I will be that for you. But we need to be really clear that you're not meeting the goals and the measures and metrics that you originally said you wanted from our time together, which is fine. If this is what you need, this is what I'll provide you. But we need to be really clear that you can't say, I didn't teach you this information, or I didn't really help you make progress. You aren't looking for progress anymore. You're looking to just stay.
Talk therapy.
Yeah, basically. I'm not a therapist, but to kind of just get that, your thoughts and your feelings, that'll create that safe place for you. So we've had to do some of that level setting before as well. Because I did have a client one time say, oh, I don't really feel like I learned a ton. And I was like, wait a second, like we stopped coaching because you asked for that and you were just using this. So some of that level setting with clients, I think, is important as well.
Well, and I think to just talk about coaching in any sense is like, I'm your coach, but you're the player. You know what I mean? Like, I can give you the strategies. I can help you see how to get to the goal. I can tell you how to get around the defenders and all of that. But like, you have the cleats on. So
it's the information.
You have to do it.
The coach and it's the participant or the coachee. Yeah, it's not just one or the other. It could be the best information in the world, but if it's a terrible coach, not going to help them. It could be the best information with the best coach, but if they don't want it, it's not going to help them. So it's like, it's that combination. And I have some incredible testimonials of that awesome trifecta coming together where everyone was all in and we crushed it, and they're the CEO in their company now and just like crushing life and doing amazing things with their kids and their family, and so many, growth success stories. But you got to be willing to do that work.
Good for you. I love this story.
This is so fun.
And you're so lovely. And what you're
Aw.
doing with everybody that you interact with and your family, and just sharing your story, and, you know, just being candid about it being difficult. And I mean, you could walk around today and no one might think that you ever went through that. I mean, when I met you at the conference, and I really want to know everybody's story, and there just isn't time.
Yeah.
But, you know, even just the way you approached it, like, you're so upbeat and immediately engaging, and then you told part of your story at the dinner that night, and I would have, I mean, how could I? I didn't know you, but, you know, I just think you're doing a service by sharing that, and just being an example for what it feels like to maybe not be all the way together in a way, and then also not know that you're not doing it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know because you're just being reactive or being triggered or having PTSD and not understanding that. But then asking for help somewhere.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I ask for help all the time. I mean, that's the beautiful thing of having an interdependent community. And I really feel like my husband and I have been able to have that, and that has made such a difference. I ask for help all the time, even if it's organizing my pantry. Like, I have a friend who's so organized, and she gets energy organizing. I don't.
No.
I don't want to do that.
I know. But you want the pantry.
But I want the pantry organized, and then I can love her in other ways that give me, you know, that I uniquely can give. And so that's the beauty of that interdependence and building that community. But I actually really appreciate you sharing that about the story. It's only been recently that I've started sharing my story, because I think I believed for a long time that I needed to kind of have it all together, to be believed, to be credible, to speak. I have to be so polished, and there is a level to that. Yeah, you do need to be a good storyteller. You do need to know how to deliver information, but I've really had to take the mask off, and I think that this whole healing journey has helped me just remove the mask entirely. But I think now it's like, it's not worth it. It's not. I'm able to help so many more people by sharing my painful, authentic story. And at the end of the day, that's all that I want anyways. That's the only reason I speak. That's the reason I coach. That's the reason I do workshops, is because I know it's possible to heal. And if I can heal, and if I can get better, anyone can.
Yeah.
And we don't have to stay broken. We don't have to stay in this really sad, lonely space. We can heal and we can grow. And I want so badly to empower leaders and parents with the right tools to be able to take control of their lives and not be a victim to their past.
Well, you're doing it. So good for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so any last things that you want to offer, share, any things? I mean, we've covered a lot, so no pressure.
If someone wants to discover their uniqueness, they can find me on Instagram.
Okay.
I'm at the Molly Hildebrandt.
And it will be on the screen.
And it will be on the screen. So find me there, and it's the link in my bio. It takes you to my link tree, and it's one of the top links, so they can discover their uniqueness.
Yeah.
And at the very end, it's really cool. You can put in your email, and you'll actually get 2 videos that help you understand more of your uniqueness after the fact. So I think that's really fun, and I have a whole YouTube channel just dedicated to helping people learn about their uniqueness. There's a inexpensive ebook by Flowcess that helps people fully unpack their uniqueness. So I don't get anything for any of that. It's more of a, I really want to help people, and this is where you could go to get those resources.
And this has been so interesting to hear about this. Clearly, I'll be going on there. But
let me know your results.
I will. But just it's another way for people to discover more about who they are. And there's so many traditional ways, and there are, you know, I help with that too. But you know, you're so light, and you know, I feel more, I don't know, just like I want to get it done. So there are different personalities and different ways to find that, and different people to work with. And I think I just love what you have going on there. And so I think people should go check that out, especially, you know, just to explore.
Yeah.
And then you can continue to help, you know, one person at a time.
Exactly.
So love that.
Exactly.
Okay, so thank you for coming on.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it.
This was so wonderful. Could talk to you all day.
Same. Okay, so thank you for joining us, and thanks to Molly for coming here. Don't be afraid to step into somebody's perspective that isn't yours, like we discussed today, but hang on to your own, especially if it's working for you. Be resilient, continue to show up even when things are hard. Try not to let emotion derail you. It doesn't mean you can't feel it. So show up. You need it, your kids need it, we all need it. Continue to pursue your goals and to have goals and to get after those and to ask for help when you need it. And remember that you're not alone. There is a community of 2 billion of us moms around the world, and we are here for you. Thank you.